Most leaders think that change fails or stalls because of strategy. It doesn't. It stalls or fails because there's a lack of understanding about how the brain processes change. And the very first thing every single brain says to change 100% of the time is no. Maybe that only lasts a millisecond. Maybe it lasts a millennia. But that is what the first reaction is. It's because if you change something, I can't guarantee if I'm going to survive. Maybe survival means I just want to keep my boss or my favorite parking spot or my salary. You change it and that's no longer guaranteed. And what the brain wants and thrives on is a guaranteed survival. It gets exceptionally tricky because what's going to convince the primitive part of my brain that I'm going to be okay is very different than what's going to convince the primitive part of your brain. That's why it all gets a bit messy at first. So what you want to do is create an environment where people hear about a change, and then there's a bit of space between that moment and when you come back together to figure out what information do you need, what isn't clear, because I need time to settle the primitive part of my brain to at least get 51% probability that I'm going to survive this change. You know, maybe that's because I'm going to go to lunch with my friend or whatever it means. There just needs to be a pause there, just a break. So when you make a change announcement and everyone goes quiet, don't misinterpret the quiet as agreement, acceptance. Interpret the quiet as the primitive brain is now engaged. They've all heard what I've said, but they're not going to know right now if they have any questions. What they're going to know right now is, uh-oh, I don't know if I'll survive, so let's just say no. You give them a little time to get that sorted out. The brain will sort it out. And then you come back together and find out what information do people need and how do you get it to them. Probably have to get it to them repeatedly, but we'll talk about that in another video. All right, now you know how to interpret the quiet. I tell you, I've spent 35 years working with organizations and leaders, and if they even just do that one thing, it dramatically accelerates change integration.